Y'all, can I tell you about these Tecovas boots? I don't know if y'all know this, but these boots are handmade, high quality, stylish, and comfortable right out of the box. I know we buy everything online these days, but boots are something you really should get fitted for. And it just so happens Tecovas is based right here in Austin. So come shop with me at the Tecovas store on South Congress or the Domain. That's TECOVAS.com. Don't go gently, y'all. Today on CityCast Austin, we're breaking format a bit to bring you a special episode. We're recording this live. It's Sunday afternoon at 3 p.m. I'm here with Scott Braddock of Quorum Report and executive producer Eva Ruth Moravec. Now, originally, we had planned to run an episode previewing President Joe Biden's visit to Austin, but now Biden's trip has been postponed after the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. And it kind of feels like from now on, how we think about this election year will be different and marked by this point in time, like before this attempted assassination and after. This episode is brought to you by our exclusive launch sponsor, Tecovas. It's Monday, July 15th. I'm Nikki Devon, and this is what Austin is talking about today. Hi, Scott. Hi, Eva Ruth.
Hey there.
Hey, Nikki.
Thank you both so much for hopping on at the last minute for this special episode.
Yeah.
So we're talking today, of course, because something huge happened over the weekend. So President Joe Biden was set to come to the LBJ Presidential Library to give a speech commemorating the 60th anniversary of the signing of the Civil Rights Act. In the aftermath of the shooting, he postponed the trip. Why do you think he did that?
Oh, sure. He needs to be at the White House now. I'm sure that he was not pleased that he was not at the White House when the shooting unfolded. He really needs to be seen from either the East Room of the White House or the Oval Office. President Biden needs to show the country and the world, really, he needs to show everyone calm, steady leadership right now.
President Joe Biden was planning on coming here to kind of get that boost. He was coming to a friendly audience in Austin. He was coming to do this celebratory speech at the LBJ Library, in a friendly audience there, doing something that he had a lot of familiarity with. Also curious about, what do you think locally, him not coming here, having to postpone this trip, at least for now, what does Austin kind of miss out by not having him be here for that event? We won't have him landing at ABIA, driving down 35, seeing maybe the protesters who were planning on being on the overpasses or the people supporting or whatever that would have been.
Well, I mean, the first thing is you won't have the traffic that goes along with a presidential visit. That's the first answer. And that's tough in any city, but it's especially tough in Austin. But look, I mean, his appearance in Austin was not going to really be for the Austin audience, right? He was going to use Austin as the backdrop for what he wanted to show the nation. And you've had the president on what I would call, he's trying to do a comeback tour, right? He had that disastrous debate performance a couple of weeks ago. And he's trying to basically show, everybody in Texas and all the rest of the states that he's still got it, that he can still do this. And the plan was he was going to come here on the momentous occasion of the anniversary of the signing of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. We made mention of that on the Texas Take podcast, our show that we do, which people can also check out on all podcast platforms. It's a shameless plug. Look, they're going to reschedule it. Apparently, they're going to try to do it in about a month. We'll see if that actually happens.
Biden skipping this trip for now to Austin. Do you think that will hurt him at all among Austin Democrat voters or even, undecided voters here?
I think that the Austin Democrats, it's interesting. You have Lloyd Doggett leading the charge to replace Biden on the ticket. And Congressman Doggett was saying when he made his announcement about his feelings on that, he said that, people in his district, which is Austin and Travis County, he was saying that it was running 10-1 that Democrats around here don't want Biden as the nominee. They may, on the Democratic side at this point, may not be taking, what Democrats in Austin to think about it very seriously. I don't know that canceling a presidential trip to Travis County is going to have a big impact in the way this state votes in the presidential election. I do think that, again, that the debate performance of Biden and this attempted assassination on Trump probably has more impact for sure on the way that people are going to view the election. What's interesting is we don't know how that's going to play out. A veteran of Texas politics texted me a version of this morning. I'll share it with y'all. This is from a Republican. He said that the shooting of Trump, in a lot of ways, the attempted assassination on him, for the country, it's kind of like a lightning strike. Like the tree can keep growing, but just in a different way. And we're not sure how that's going to happen just yet.
I want to talk about Texans' connection to the shooting. I saw that you talked to Texas Agricultural Commissioner Sid Miller, who was actually there.
I did.
What did he have to say?
When I talked to him, what he told me was, as everything was originally playing out, he thought that the sounds that he was hearing sounded like balloons were popping in the area, that he had no idea that it was a shooting either. And it takes everybody a few minutes in that moment of the adrenaline and everything else to figure out what's really going on. And of course, he was quickly saying that he and others were going to pray for President Trump.
It's also hard to believe because it's such a rare situation for us to be in, and this is such an iconic time, important time in American politics. With Sid Miller being there, do you think that sort of fans the flames and brings that fight closer to Texas?
Commissioner Miller has been one of the most outspoken supporters of former President Trump in this state, and he certainly practices the same kind of politics. I say this all the time, and I sound like a broken record, but in Texas, the election of consequence is the Republican primary. And right now, the Republican base voter is the fan base of former President Trump. There's, that Venn diagram is just a perfect circle. And so for our politics in Texas and what happens here, in Austin and more so outside Austin, what happens here is that you have a huge group of people right now who make up the Texas electorate who are going to now rally behind former President Trump. And this shooting over the weekend probably rallies the Republican base in a way that it would maybe not have been true absent those things.
Governor Greg Abbott on Sunday said that Trump is truly blessed by the hand of God. And he described him as the mightiest warrior that we have in the United States of America. And I mean, do you think that that's pretty common around most Texas Republicans? Do you think they all pretty much feel the same way about him? Or is this just the opportunity to be falling in line behind him right now?
Well, this is going to shock you. They're saying what their voters want them to say.
Exactly.
Whether they actually believe it is a different question. Look, and I would point out that Governor Abbott said that at a news conference that was supposed to be focused on response to a hurricane in the Houston area. Governor Abbott, in a lot of ways, is, I'll just say, he's skating once again. He was missing in action on an overseas trip in Asia while a hurricane was playing out on the Gulf Coast. Millions of people without power, 7 people at least passed away, and that number could go up. And it may be that a lot of folks don't even notice that Abbott wasn't there because of the much larger national events that have unfolded over the last couple of weeks. All the discussion about whether President Biden should step aside, now this attempted assassination of former President Trump, just like the rest of America, those things are front and center for people in Texas, including here in Austin.
The timing is just immaculate, I gotta say. It's all coming on the heels of essentially this kerfuffle where, President Biden calls the Houston Chronicle because he couldn't find Texas leaders.
You saw last week that the lieutenant governor, who's acting as the governor, Dan Patrick, was late in turning in some paperwork to the federal government to try to get relief to people in the Houston area. With Patrick, he had been doing a good job, I thought, last week of updating all Texans about what was going on and helping out with the coordination of things. But then, of course, he got baited into this ridiculous finger-pointing fight with the White House where, as you mentioned, President Biden had called him out and called out Governor Abbott for not being in the state and saying that it was hard to get a hold of leadership in Texas. There's always some finger pointing after a hurricane, and I do think that the Governor Abbott's team has probably realized that maybe he's used up all the goodwill he can in this situation. You have the RNC starting this week, the Republican National Convention starting in Milwaukee.
When do you think Governor Abbott is going to head to the RNC?
It might be to his benefit to not go. Going into Thursday and Friday last week, I had started to talk with some Capitol insiders who said that it was an extra bad look for the governor to basically just parachute into Houston on Sunday, do a news conference there, and blast the local utility, which he did, and then potentially just jump on another plane and leave the state again right
Right.
after that. At some point, it's too much, right?
So, Scott, I know that you've mentioned on the Texas Take in the past just Governor Abbott's relationship with the RNC, and that it doesn't seem like he's been there before, definitely not in a big speaking capacity.
If I take off my opinion hat and put on my just dispassionate analyst hat, this whole trip to Asia, where part of it is that he's in Taiwan to sort of give the middle finger to China, and his big speaking role at the RNC, all of this speaks to someone who has ambitions that are greater than being the governor of Texas. In the United States, there's only one office to run for that's higher than governor of Texas. I've talked to some of the best Republican minds in this state, some political operatives who have been in the game for decades, who say that they do believe that even if it's unlikely that he would be successful, that Abbott's already eyeing something higher, and that would be the White House.
Do you think that Abbott wants to be vice president? Or are you thinking he wants to go even higher and angle towards president?
The way he's acting, I could believe that he was interested in either of those. He got the largest single contribution from an individual in the history of the state of Texas. It was a check from one guy, a TikTok investor, a billionaire named Jeff Yass in Pennsylvania. This guy, Nikki, wrote him a check for $6 million. If that sounds like a lot, it is. Historically, large political contributions in Texas would top out around $1 million. So that means if he's thinking about the White House,
Right.
he now has this relationship with a guy who can write a $6 million check.
And if you're Trump looking for a vice presidential candidate to bring on, you're certainly trying to think about who's going to be able to bring in $6 million plus as well, right? I mean, that's got to be a big calculation.
Money is the mother's milk of politics. You can't do it without it. And Abbott has always been a prolific fundraiser. He's somebody, look, if you talk to people who run for office for anything from city council to state representative to congressperson, the staffers who work for those elected officials will tell you that one thing that it's really hard to get a lot of them to do is personally raise money. It's his superpower. And that's why he is the candidate who in this state can put together something like $40 million for a campaign, which is, I mean, think of it this way. There have been times in recent years where Greg Abbott's campaign war chest is larger than the Republican National Committee.
What?
And so essentially he is the Republican Party in this state.
The Republican National Convention is starting this week, and there are lots of speeches planned, including during primetime Monday night. That's also when NBC is going to air its interview with Biden and Lester Holt, which was supposed to happen here in Austin, but now it's going to be in the Oval Office. What do you think people will be watching more?
This was going to be Biden's chance for some counter programming to what the Republicans will be saying, as they kick off the campaign for the fall. But I got to tell you, this shooting over the weekend, it changes everything, and we don't know how. This is one of those moments, and I've been doing, political coverage for about a quarter century now. This is one of those moments where everything's different, but you don't know exactly how it's going to play out. And so I think that the contrast that you may very well see is at the RNC, you'll see speeches where, like Governor Abbott was saying this weekend, that look, they try to put our guy in jail, they try to kill him, they can't take him out, and there's going to be a lot of excitement from the crowd about that. Trump with his fist in the air, the same way that he was doing at that Pennsylvania rally after he had been threatened by this shooter who was taken down. And for the Democrats, they are right now already trying to figure out exactly what their path forward is. I mean, the reason that President Biden's on this comeback tour is because he's trying to show that he should still be the nominee. And it's very possible that after the shooting, that some of those discussions among Democrats about replacing Biden as the nominee potentially, that some of that's frozen now, that some of that will stop. But I do think that it's definitely a secondary topic now that the former president has had his life threatened in this incident in Pennsylvania. For the Republicans, people are going to be tuned in, I think, record numbers. We'll see, to see what the Republican Party's message is going to be following something that has gotten everyone focused on this suddenly. The way my publisher, Harvey Kronberg at Quorum Report, had put it was, this is an election between the diminished and the deranged. I don't know if it's going to seem the same now to people going forward after this attempted assassination on Trump. But I do think that, as folks are watching the RNC, if those undecided voters are seeing a message that really seems angry and reminds them of what they saw as chaos during the Trump administration, during his time in office, that may turn those people off.
What I'm seeing is this has happened, and it's an opportunity for Trump to just mention assassination every single time he is on television. This is going to be the horse that he rides on for the foreseeable future. And it'll, again, make him seem strong and make Biden seem weaker. Will he be able to turn this assassination attempt essentially into a win?
I will say a difference in the way that Democrats and Republicans responded to this was Republicans were instantly politicizing it. But the Republicans were instantly saying a version of what you're talking about. They were instantly saying that this makes President Trump inevitable. Look, I think that Trump's candidacy is not made inevitable as a winner because of the attempted assassination. I don't think that. I know that he and other Republicans are already using it, as part of the campaign. That's already happening. And we'll see the degree to which that's going to happen as the RNC plays out this week. It's a really great point. To your point, Nikki, every chance they get to fire up their base, they're going to do it. But I would say as far as winning the election, Trump's base alone can't get him there. He has to get people who have previously voted for Democrats to switch back and vote for Republicans in key places like Pennsylvania and Arizona. And I would say this, maybe last thought. If Trump wins in Pennsylvania and Arizona, he doesn't even need to win Georgia. That's how different the map is now compared to 4 years ago and 8 years ago.
Wow. Okay. Scott, thank you so much. We really appreciate you hopping on here today.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye, Scott.
Bye, Scott. Thanks a lot.
That's all for today here on CityCast Austin. You can find links to Scott's work in our show notes. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our Hey Austin newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye, y'all.